Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. I wanted to talk today about a new era of business. I just did a Facebook Live with a friend about this, and I was like, you know what? There's a lot to say about this. There's a lot more to say about this. I want to dive more into this in the podcast today. One of the things I've talked a lot about in this podcast is, and we all know, is how dynamically everything is changing right now in the world. You know, in the United States, we have a massively changing political landscape, a lot of polarization, a lot of, like it seems like people are becoming more polarized and more, kind of digging their heels into what they think needs to happen based on what has been. And anytime we use what has been as a reference point for what we think needs to be, we preclude all kinds of new possibilities from coming to reality. Reference points are something that really literally lock possibility out of existence. Like we can't create different futures, new futures, greater futures if we're functioning from the reference points of what was, what used to be, how things used to work. And this applies to business. And when I say business, I mean the business of our lives, including the business that we do for money and, all the commerce activities that we engage in. But business to me is really our entire life. It's everything. It's the biome. It's the entrepreneurial biome of your life, your living, your body, your relationships, your family, everything that you do in your life to create something, whatever it is that you're creating as your life. And that's business. And it's like we were so attached to the past. And I think a lot of that is because people don't really know how to create a future. It's not something we're educated in. We're educated, this is how things work. This is how things go. This is like the order of things, the way of doing things. Research shows that this is how a successful business is created or whatever. And that basically denies us from having any sort of innovation, creativity, new ideas, things like that in how we want to move forward. And now, because things are falling apart so dynamically, there's actually such a beautiful possibility in all of that. Because what used to be doesn't actually work anymore for the most part. I mean, for most people, what used to be, how things used to work, it's not working anymore. And we can see that with what's changing politically, economically, in so many different ways. We're seeing how dynamically things are changing and how things are no longer working. And when something is no longer working, it doesn't have to be a problem. But if you only know how to create based on what was, based on reference points, based on, what science proves, what research says, et cetera, you're only looking back. You're only looking at with hindsight. You're not looking to the future with fresh eyes, new eyes, creative and innovative ideas and ways of being that will allow you to usher in a new era, a new future, a new reality with business, with creation, with money, with economics, with politics, whatever it may be. And the doors are wide open right now. That's the good thing about this time, is the doors are wide open. Many people think that the doors are closed, that a lot of doors are closed as the economy seems to be tumbling and crumbling. And I know a lot of people's businesses are feel like they're kind of falling apart. And one of the things is that when you define anything from that perspective, like, oh, my business is falling apart right now, it's not working anymore, then you're like overlaying this conclusion onto your business of, okay, well, you're deciding, like, it's falling apart, it's not working. I'm going to have to, close it down or go do something else or whatever. Instead of going, staying out of the judgment of failure and the judgment of what failure is, the judgment of what success is, the judgment of you, the judgment of your business, the judgment of what's happening. And looking with deep and intense, unwavering curiosity. And when we look with curiosity, we start to see things that we weren't able to see before because we were looking with conclusion. So you begin to look with curiosity and go, well, what's right about this? And I'm not getting. And what's possible here? What are the possibilities that are showing up here that didn't exist before, that weren't available before, that I haven't been willing to perceive before? Now, you can even just notice, like, the energy of those questions is expansive. You start to open doors when you ask questions, and you start to expand into, wow, there's something fresh, there's something new that's becoming available. I mean, the sun even started shining brighter when I asked those questions. But that's literally how it is. I can feel, it's like the sun is coming in my window more, even now as I'm speaking more and more. The clouds are moving. And literally, when you ask a question, that's what occurs. There's more light shed on something because you're not like driving something into the ground as an impossibility with your points of view. Instead, you're going, well, let me turn this over and look from a different angle and see, what is the possibility here? What is right about this? If my life was always moving in the direction of greater, my business was always moving in the direction of greater, what is right about this? What if this wasn't a problem, what would the possibility be? When you're willing to function from curiosity, from asking questions, from innovation, from new ways of doing things, like I said, you're just like constantly opening new doors, not only in your business, but in your industry as well. And this is how we become the leaders ushering in a new era of business, a new era of creation, a new era of economics that is so much more. Well, we can make it whatever we desire it to be. I personally would love to have an era of business and economics and, more than just an era, like a future that is about the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of the future for everybody, more unity, more oneness, more connection to the earth, more connection to each other, more connection to ourselves and our bodies. And to me, it's like the fact that what has been is dying, it's good news. It didn't really work for me. I didn't love how things used to be, I mean, I sort of had accepted it, as I think a lot of us had, but did it really work? Was it really a reality that was like so worth preserving, you know? And I think a lot of times we hold on to these sort of dying realities because we think we need to preserve it. But before we even look to see what that didn't actually even work for me to begin with, you know? And so then it's just like, wow, what an incredible possibility to create something completely new and completely different. It's kind of like if you've ever had a breakup of a relationship where at the time you thought, you know, you were devastated, you were sad, you were like, I can't believe this is over, you know? And then time goes by and you go, oh, wow, I'm so glad that relationship ended, you know? Um, it didn't ever actually work for me to begin with, you know? And you start to see all these things about the relationship or about the person or whatever it may be. And you start to really realize that it actually didn't work for you in the first place. And then you start to become grateful that it is no longer, you know? I see the change of reality, the changing tenor, nature, climate, you know, era of business and economics right now as that. It's like, great, like this is finally crumbling. My business, my economic reality, my monetary financial reality, my reality of creation does not have to go down the drain with it, you know, because for me, I've always thought something greater could be possible anyway. So, what if now is our time? What if now is really our time to thrive and to flourish and to literally usher in a new era with business creation and money? So, one of the things I alluded to or I spoke to in this Facebook Live that I just did is this book that I just read that is absolutely brilliant, life changing book. And it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's written by a man named Will Guidara, who, like me, is a Cornell graduate. Thought it was just so fun. He mentioned where he lived in college. He lived like right down the street from where I lived. about I was there, I think maybe about 10 years before he was. But anyway, really great. I actually, if you're going to read the book, listen to the Audible, listen to the audio book because it's just so fun to hear him, to hear his voice, to hear him tell these stories. And it's full of stories of his journey in the restaurant business. And he started out, you know, in a certain way. He was never really interested in fine dining. And he eventually got hired at this restaurant called 11 Madison Park to turn it into a fine dining restaurant. And he's just a visionary. And he's also willing to really change things and mix things up and go with what he knows. And, you know, it didn't sound to me like he's somebody that does a whole lot of doubt. I don't know his process, but he tells so many stories of things that he changed and that they changed in this restaurant over the course of the time that he owned it and ran it. That I think somebody who's slow with change or not willing to trust themselves probably wouldn't have been able to create what he created. And he took this restaurant from kind of a, you know, standard, fairly decent steakhouse to fine dining, not just fine dining, best restaurant in the world, 3-star Michelin, 4-star New York Times, member of Relais and Chateau, like all the really, you know, very, you know, like the highest honors that you can have as a restaurant, basically. They did all of it. They created all of it. But they did it by change. And they were constantly changing things up, how they did things, what they were doing, what the menu was, how they did it, you know, how they presented things, how they were with their hospitality. And a lot of this book is about giving people, the subtitle of the book is something about giving people more than they expect. And really going over above and beyond with hospitality, which is something that translates into every business. So if you're an entrepreneur, reading, I just so highly recommend listening to this book, because it will give you a lot of awareness and ideas. But he was always willing to challenge things, and he wasn't a fine dining guy to begin with. He ran the restaurant, or the like cafe at the Museum of Modern Art. Like, he did kind of, not fine dining. That wasn't his origins or his interest. And he hesitated even to go into that world. But what he brought with him was this questioning of everything. And, if you think of fine dining, there's a lot of kind of old school fine dining. Like, I can think of this one restaurant in Boulder where I live that's fine dining, old school, very old school, very traditional, very, like standard how you do things, And a lot of it doesn't really make sense. Like, if you look at it pragmatically, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of boring. And why are you doing that? And why are you talking to me that way? Why are you treating me that way? Why are you so formal? I'm a person, And what this guy Will was willing to do is just to question all of that, throw stuff out the window, mix it up, and get his staff like really engaging with people, talking to people, getting in there with their clients in a way that was appropriate to those people, reading the room kind of a thing. But he was constantly challenging the way things were done just because of how things were. And from his willingness to ask questions about that and add new elements and mix it up and make things slightly informal in areas where they had been more formal, but didn't make sense, he evolved the culture of fine dining, I would say. And he evolved definitely the culture of the restaurant business, the hospitality industry, and business, I would say, in general. He was part of the evolution, and still is, of this whole way of doing things. And it was because he was willing to question and innovate and trust himself and fail. The willingness to fail is huge. I mean, if we're not willing to fail, then we won't succeed, actually, because there's so many things that you have to avoid when you're not willing to fail that keep you from actually succeeding. Your life, your business has to stay so small when you're not willing to fail, because there's a lot of things that you won't try. You probably want to allow yourself to have ease with innovation. And he was just like, let's try this. Let's do this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. Let's recreate. Let's re-innovate. And this is like, to me, that's the joy of business. And that's really what allows us to bring ourselves, bring what it is that we know, bring what makes sense to us and what's true for us into the new era of business that is upon us. Bring connection with other people and kindness and the warmth that commerce can be. Bring the creation of a future. Bring asking questions. Bring being kind to the people that you work with. Getting rid of hierarchy. Getting rid of things that exist just because they exist, just because they've always existed, but they don't necessarily make any sense. Like, getting rid of that stuff, and doing new things, new ways, and trying new things and finding out, what works and what doesn't for now, and being willing to try it again in the future if it pops to try it again in the future. This is how those of us that are in the current conversation of business and commerce and developing and desiring to grow with rapidly changing times right now, this is how we get to be part of the creation of a new era with business. And this is also how we get to lead that conversation, the development of a new culture, and ushering in completely new ways of doing things. And it's not about bringing in a new way of doing things that then becomes the standard operating procedure. Standard operating procedure gets really boring really fast for most people. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably one of those people. Otherwise, you wouldn't really be interested in what I had to say. But standard operating procedure is boring. It doesn't make sense. It's like you want to be doing things that are relevant and pragmatic for the situation at hand. And the situation at hand right now is new era. When you're willing to innovate like that, when you're willing to ask questions and you're willing to try new things and, be willing to fail and all of that, you can then start to look from a different point of view at what's going on and be in the question of how you can use it all to your advantage. I really do believe that there are so many doors opening right now for those of us willing to innovate, to lead, to look from a different point of view, to have a different perspective, to bring fresh, new eyes and ideas and questions and curiosities to the landscape of business that is completely changing right now. And insert those energies, ideas, creative possibilities into that landscape. You can either be part of that, you can be on the creative edge of it, you can be on the leading edge of it. And this may even it doesn't mean you have to be out there in a big way for the whole world to see. This could just be how you do things, But we can either be on that creative edge, leading edge, influencing and directing and forming new ways of doing things that have never existed before that come from the willingness to innovate, or you can get swept away with the tide that's going out on the way things have been with business and creation and economics and money. And to me, it's like what I'm really excited about is bringing my own enthusiasm for creation to the table in a completely new and completely different way. Enthusiasm is an energy that it's like it just adds so much life to everything. And when you really bring that, everything gets to be greater and thrive and flourish. And it's so easy when things feel like they're falling apart to lose your enthusiasm, to lack enthusiasm, to feel like it's hard to find. But right now, what if you could be enthusiastic about this wide open future that is upon us? What if you could be enthusiastic about the fact that people are so done with how things have been, and so in a lot of ways scared about the future because it can't look the way that the past has? That you could be an invitation to a totally new, totally different way of doing things for others as well as yourself by bringing what it is that you know to the table. There's an opening and an availability of that more than ever. And if we stay out of our points of view that things are falling apart, crumbling, tumbling, all of that, we stay out of those points of view. And we stay connected to enthusiasm, curiosity, question, innovation, willingness to forge new pathways and new territory and new ways of being and doing whatever it is that we're doing and being. We get to really lead the charge, and we get to create for ourselves a new way, a new reality with business, a new reality with money, a new reality with creation, that is way more fun and way more relevant and way more pragmatic and way more encompassing of consciousness and oneness and the evolution of us and our planet into something that's far, far greater than what has been. We can use business and commerce as a way of changing the world and changing the future. And it's time. It is time. So you are invited to be part of that, to bring yourself in whatever way you know to bring yourself, your awareness, your uniqueness, your creative juice, your knowing of a different possibility, and bring that to the table and the creation of something totally different. And if you would like more tools for how to do that, I have 2 business classes coming up that they're very different, and I'm really excited for both of them. One of them is a Business Done Different class that is a Joy of Business class. It's part of the Joy of Business body of work, part of Access Consciousness. And that's going to be August 28th for 4 days on Zoom, 3.5 hours a day. And a deep dive into the tools of Access Consciousness and Joy of Business in regards to business and creation and money. And really giving you tools that are future tools, like tools for how to create a future, how to innovate, how to work with staff, how to work with money, how to work with all the different aspects of business and creation to create a different future. And I would say tools that are very, very relevant and in a lot of ways essential right now, in particular, for where we're going with everything and where we would like to go. I mean, if we don't take the sort of bull by the horns right now in terms of where we would like to go, it's just the future is just going to sort of happen, and it's probably not going to be what we want it to be. But if you are willing to slip in to a new way of leading the conversation with new tools, fresh tools, tools that are designed for this moment, the level of success that is available in a very different way it's massive right now. I am also going to be doing a 6-month program called the Generative Business Pods, which I've been doing for a good 10 years at this point, every 6 months. And this particular 6-month round is going to be on the topic of money, a new reality with money. So really putting a lot of what I've spoken to here into play on a very consistent basis, every day, every week, calls, conversations. There's a lot of different ways that we work in the Generative Business Pods. One-on-one sessions, small group facilitation, large group facilitation. And in this particular business pods, we're going to be working with the Access Consciousness, How to Become Money workbooks, which are amazing tools for changing your financial reality, very magical. And that is starting on August 21st. And this is going to be launched, this podcast is going to be broadcast on the 15th of August and on the 14th of August, Wednesday, and on the 16th, on Friday, we have a free call, A New Reality with Money, the beginning, to give you a taste of that, of what the Business Pods is going to be. And that is, even if you're seeing this after the fact, you'll be able to get that either on my YouTube or in my shop. Actually, that may not be true because we had said we weren't going to make the recording available. So never mind. You might have missed it, but you can look and see. Maybe we'll post it later. Yeah, we're going to be exploring that whole reality with like what's true for you with money, what's true for you with money that's never existed before, that you might have always thought was crazy, and that you can actually step into now with the support of a group of people in the Generative Business Pods over this 6-month period of time where we really just dive in and roll up our sleeves and start to really play with creation from a completely different perspective. So you're invited. It's all on my website, heathernichols.com. And again, if you see this, 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, I'll probably be doing something similar. So you can go to my website and see what's up. But I'm really excited, and it feels like now is the time more than ever before to be immersing ourselves in these conversations, these tools, and a completely new way of doing things to usher in a new era with business and money that is so much more about kindness and contribution, the earth, creating a different future, oneness, honoring of ourselves, honoring of each other, honoring of the earth, and massive abundance and wealth for those who desire to have it, because that is part of this, and it is available more than we realize, really more than we realize. So thank you so much for being here and being you, and we will catch you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.